sending their finest. Does that sound familiar?
Have you guys started a race war?
It's the Bangladesh community versus Koreans.
He really struts his stuff. That's his sweet spot.
The U.S. is withdrawing from the UN Human Rights Council. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has criticized the group and claims it's biased against Israel.
I want to make it crystal clear that this step is not a retreat from human rights commitments. On the contrary, we take this step because our commitment does not allow us to remain a part of a hypocritical and self-serving organization that makes a mockery of human rights.
Small businesses and people who are self-employed will be able to join together to purchase health care under a new rule from the Trump administration. The plans will likely have cheaper premiums, but also fewer benefits. Association health plans don't have to provide the same level of care required by the Affordable Care Act, like prescription drug coverage, mental health treatment, or maternity care. The State Department thought that today, of all days, was the right time to host a live online Q&A devoted to tips for families traveling to other countries together.
We're proud parents.
On July 31st, 1790, George Washington signed the first American patent, issued to Samuel Hopkins for the process of making an ingredient used in fertilizer. Today, President Trump signed the 10 millionth patent, issued to Raytheon, for an invention called coherent LiDAR using intrapixel quadrature detection, a system that could help self-driving cars figure out what's on the road.
I want to take a moment to address something you've been reading a lot about, the illegal immigration crisis on our southern borders. They come up through Mexico. Mexico does nothing for us. Try staying in Mexico for a couple of days, see how long that lasts. Okay? We have no wall, we have no border security. Without a border, you don't have a country. They're not sending their finest. Does that sound familiar? So what I'm asking Congress to do is to give us a third option, which we have been requesting since last year, the legal authority to detain and promptly remove families together as a unit.
Those meandering remarks from President Trump this morning all roughly translate to this: Congress, please fix my mess. And most members of Congress would very much like to, because the politics of family separation are so bad. But they can't seem to agree on a strategy. President Trump came to the Hill this afternoon to meet with GOP members, but it's not clear that they made any progress. Here's where things stand. This week, the House is voting on 2 GOP attempts at immigration reform that were in progress before this crisis erupted. They include all kinds of sweeteners to get President Trump to sign them, including border wall funding and restrictions on asylum seekers and legal immigration, but only one of them includes a solution to the family separation crisis. And that's a moot point anyway, because every Democrat will oppose them. Liberal Congressman Jerry Nadler introduced a standalone bill to end the separations, but it's unlikely that Republicans will get on board, especially after he hijacked an oversight committee hearing today in protest.
We should not put children in cages. The minute this hearing adjourns, sooner if we can,
Mr. Chairman,
I hope
regular
that our
order.
committees can work together.
At the other end of the spectrum in the House are guys like Steve King, the hardest of the hardliners, who doesn't think there's a problem with the policy at all.
Well, I think this problem, much of it is ginned up by the news media. And as I said, I went there,
You don't think that this is increased under the Trump administration?
I looked at these children, I talked to these children, I saw that they were being cared for. The media hype on this blows it completely out of proportion.
So the media hype is part of the problem.
Sure.
Senate Republicans appear to want to pass their own solution, and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell promised today that they would get there.
The president says we need to act. The Democrats say we need to act, and we say we need to act. So when that happens, we act.
Republican Senators John Cornyn and Ted Cruz and Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein have all introduced bills addressing the issue, but none have bipartisan support and all offer different solutions.
We need to solve this problem. Nobody wants to see children removed from their parents. Kids belong with their moms and dads.
This isn't the first time that the president has rolled a grenade into the immigration system and then demanded that other people fix it. Remember, back in September, he ended the DACA program unilaterally, and then he tried to blame the Democrats for it. That problem still hasn't been solved. And now the administration's done it again by deciding to criminally prosecute all border crossers, splitting up families in the process. And like with DACA, no matter what Congress tries to do to fix this, the solution ultimately depends on what President Trump will accept. And that seems to change by the hour.
In Los Angeles today, thousands of voters are coming out for what seems to be a minor, bureaucratic ballot initiative. But the vote has turned into a turf war, as immigrant groups in the city fight to be represented.
Victory!
So there's a huge problem going on in K-Town right now.
Tell us what it is.
Okay, essentially what it is that one guy who knew the system really well, he was on the neighborhood council, he put in a petition to change Koreatown into Little Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Basically, the top half of K-Town is going to turn into Bangladesh Town unless you go vote June 19th. Okay, we're counting on you. Hashtag keep Koreatown.
Koreatown, a politically dormant community in Los Angeles, has woken up. To understand what's happening here, you need to know a little bit about local politics in LA. The city is divided into 99 neighborhood councils. In this area, the neighborhood council is called Wilshire Center-Koreatown, even though the neighborhood includes not only Korean immigrants, but also Latinos and Bangladeshis. Last month, members of the Bangladeshi community filed a petition to subdivide Koreatown's councils in two. The new council would serve over half of what now is overseen by the Koreatown Council. But then they revealed the name, Wilshire Center Little Bangladesh Neighborhood Council. Now, this didn't mean half of Koreatown would suddenly become Little Bangladesh. Koreatown would just get a second neighborhood council to deal with issues like trash pickup and neighborhood festivals. A new council means a $42,000 budget, more services, and representation. But many Korean Americans still saw it as a threat.
I think it's discriminating against all the diversity in Koreatown to have that large district territories for Bangladesh, and I have a problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on the corner of 6th and Western, pretty much the heart of Koreatown here.
What was this area like during the riots? What happened here?
It seemed like war, pretty much, right? A good portion of this was pretty much on fire, mobs, looting. It was just mad pandemonium, pure chaos.
He grew up in the neighborhood, saw it destroyed during the LA riots, and then helped with a 25-year rebuilding effort after large parts of Koreatown were burned to the ground.
Our parents came here and they were like, Koreans that lived in America. Today we are Americans that happen to be Korean. And that's a big difference in how we approach the problems that face us.
An estimated 20,000 Bangladeshi immigrants have lived inside Koreatown for 3 decades.
This is Apon Bazaar. It's one of the Bangladeshi stores here. So this is our meat department. And then this is usually where you can find all our drinks and groceries. These are some of the things that brings back the flavor, because if you ever visit Bangladesh, the stores, this is exactly how they have them set up.
Yeah.
So these are actually fried lentils. They're very tasty.
Jaren Islam and her husband filed a petition to establish the Wilshire Center Little Bangladesh Neighborhood Council. Growing up in this neighborhood, there are a lot of Bangladeshis within Koreatown. Did you feel almost like an invisible population?
Yeah, for some times, yeah, definitely. People didn't know who we are, even though we contributed. It wasn't the Bangladeshi community. It was maybe Indian Americans or somebody else, like, oh, just someone that looked different than us, you know? That's how it was.
Why does a neighborhood council called Little Bangladesh matter?
We are openly, visually a minority, and we do face a lot of discrimination and a lot of racism, and it does bring established things like, no, these are communities that need to be respected, and we value hard work and determination.
My parents came in '66, and so...
Oh, wow, 66. So 1 year after.
Wow, they're like OGs.
Yeah.
So they're like one of the first people here.
Yep.
So they came in '66, so you've seen the entire evolution of Koreatown then, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't even Koreatown back then. It was really K-Block.
So your upbringing pretty similar then? I mean, your parents came here in 79, so...
They came in 79. Like I said, I was born in 80. My mom worked at a hat factory, putting these on hats. This is all she did. I think that was the first job that she had.
Why does this matter? Like, it seems from afar that you're talking about a very small thing in local politics. Koreatown is still going to be Koreatown. You know, the signs will still say Koreatown. Nobody who is on 3rd and Vermont is going to think that this is Little Bangladesh.
I think the main thing is the representation, because neighborhood council does affect, you know, city planning and what goes on and what doesn't get approved or what gets approved within, you know, our borders. But I mean, we wouldn't go into your town that you've been building and, you know, doing all these things for decades and then try to change it into Little Koreatown.
Okay, but the Bangladeshi community has been there for 30 years. I mean, it's not like they came into your town, they live there.
Right, but who is...
If, you know, just to push it a bit, if the issue is representation, you know, that's their argument. Like, we have no representation at all. That's why we need to do this.
No, I'm not saying that they're moving in, but I mean, it's about who the majority is. You know, I mean, I think the neighborhood council should represent the majority of the people that live there.
And one of the things that's troubled me about following this is that while I'm sympathetic to the need for Koreatown, it seems like some of your arguments kind of border on xenophobic almost. Are you sensitive to that at all?
Absolutely. We want to be very sympathetic and understanding to that sentiment. Again, we are very in favor of the Bangladesh community getting their fair representation, understanding their place, and doing whatever we can. Again, we've supported their cause and movement.
Have you guys started a race war? I'm serious.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Well, again, let's be very clear. We didn't start this, right? We didn't initiate this. We didn't petition to split up the neighborhood council.
I mean, in essence, I mean, I guess you could, I mean, race war is kind of a strong word. I mean, you know, we're not like, you know, but it's the Bangladesh community versus Koreans. I mean, if that's what you want to call it, that's what you're going to call it.
Pharmaceutical giant Purdue is already involved in more than 1,500 federal and civil lawsuits from around the country for its role in the opioid crisis. But things got worse for the drug kingpin today after the company laid off its sales force. Purdue has been accused of lying about the dangers of Oxy and covering it up for years, all while creating a deceptive but highly effective marketing campaign that allowed it to rake in billions of dollars.
There's no need for anyone to suffer in pain anymore, because there are pain medications that really work.
Purdue had already laid off half of its sales reps back in February when it announced that it would no longer be promoting Oxycontin to doctors. The company confirmed to Vice that today it finished the job, axing the entire sales force. It also said they'd be now moving away from painkillers and towards drugs to treat cancer and central nervous system disorders. This latest move effectively marks an end to the Oxycontin era at Purdue, even though the drug accounted for 82% of the company's sales last year. A former Purdue employee told us that in recent months, sales reps were tasked with helping to push other drugs that help mitigate the side effects of Oxycontin, including an anti-constipation medication.
We found that Purdue misled doctors, patients, and the public about the real risks of their dangerous opioids, including Oxycontin.
All this is going down just a few days after the Massachusetts Attorney General announced a lawsuit against the pharma company that targets 16 current and former Oxycontin executives, claiming that the drug makers behind the painkiller are responsible for 671 deaths in the state and healthcare costs of more than $6 billion.
"15-year-old Peter Ochieng loves to gamble.
First, I put the money inside. I choose any team here. Me and take Norwich and press start. Manu, it shows that I've lost. So I'll pick another one.
It's illegal for anyone under 18 to gamble in Kenya, but kids have easy access to these machines in neighborhood convenience stores, and the games seem designed to appeal to them.
How often do you play on these machines?
Twice a day.
How much do you spend when you come here?
6 shillings.
How much do you usually win?
Once I've won something like 1,000, but rare.
Kenya is now the third biggest betting market in Africa. In major cities, people use smartphones to try their luck. But in the countryside, slot machines are more common.
Yes, good luck.
And school administrators say some students are using their lunch money to gamble, and their work is suffering.
Who is an expert in this class?
He wants to play with him, said that he always plays.
He always plays?
Yes.
So does your father play?
No.
Has he stopped you from playing?
Yes, I stopped.
He stopped you? Why? And you were making good money?
I'm not eating. I'm being given money for lunch. I'm going to play.
It's like a cancer that is really eating up our society, especially the youth. When they wake up in the morning, they start betting. So the only thing they think of is how they can make quick money through betting.
Do you think that children are becoming addicted to it?
Of course they are.
Half of Kenya's kids are born into poverty, and 58% drop out before their final high school exams.
Do you think that Kenya has a gambling problem?
Yes, Kenya has a gambling problem, and the government is taking action to deal with it.
What's the problem?
Yeah, the problem is we've had a proliferation of illegal gambling machines coming mainly from China.
Those Chinese companies take 80% of the profit from slots, pulling money out of Kenya and giving the government another reason to crack down. The Ministry of Interior banned importing slot machines from China last month, and it's going around the country staging bonfires to send a message. The government has been trying to fight this problem for years. But local governments don't always follow along.
There seems to be a disconnect between national law forbidding these machines, deeming them illegal, and counties that are giving out licenses for people to actually have machines legally in their shops.
That confusion that is there is what has actually enabled an environment now for merchants and even criminals to take advantage. I mean, it becomes very difficult to manage that. And that is where now the county governments are the ones who are letting us down by licensing those kind of things in those places.
National law enforcement officers are charged with seizing slot machines.
It says slot machines and games.
Machines and games, yeah.
So if you confiscate the machines and give them to the county government, can't he say that I've got a license?
They can say, but we don't want them. National, we don't want them, but the county needs them because they are getting money from it.
From the licenses?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons these raids are hardly effective.
How many of these raids have you done before?
One. I did only one.
What happened?
We sent to the OCS, to the police station. I don't know what happened, but I saw them back.
The machines were back?
Yes.
The next day?
Not the next day, in the evening.
In the evening?
Yeah.
The same day you raided?
Immediately, Wenyewe. These ones are hard to take out.
Where's the operator?
They have run away.
They ran away?
Yes.
They saw you coming?
Yes.
The Crencia's team managed to get the machines out of the shop, but then they dropped them off to the District County Commissioner's office, the very same office that issued the licenses.
Tutatoka. Tumefanya kazi sote. Tell me, where are the machines?
What do you propose the solution can be?
I propose that if people must gamble, then let it be left for the adults. They can have those machines in the pubs, and at least the children should be stopped from accessing these machines. There has to be some rules and regulations that govern it. Something really needs to be done, and pretty fast.
Mr. Speaker, as the congressman who represents Muncie, Indiana, and Delaware County, I rise today for the awesome and important duty to pay a happy birthday wish to Garfield.
This was 15 years ago on Garfield's 25th birthday. Today, as he turns 40, Mike Pence is vice president of the country. The guy from NBC's The Apprentice is somehow president. And Garfield is exactly the same. His face may have adorned many more t-shirts, coffee mugs, posters, and insurance billboards in the interceding years, but to read the strip that Jim Davis still writes every day, or to visit the Paws Incorporated compound on the outskirts of Muncie, Indiana, you'd be hard-pressed to tell whether it's 2018 or, let's say, 1989.
We moved in 1989, I think it was.
Oh my God.
This is where we meet with all of the licensees. We work visually. All of our walls are bulletin boards. And when we have agents come in from other countries, we could talk all day but never see the same thing, but they can go to a shelf, pick a product up, and say, do this in green, and we can sell this. You know. This is the art department back here. We took the comic strip digital about 8 years ago.
Do you happen to know how many papers it's syndicated in right now?
A little over 2,100 papers now.
Jeez.
We're in 111 countries, about 28 languages. All the mail comes in the big door over there, and it all gets sorted out. We take a look at the products that come in and approve them or not approve them. And
how often do you have to reject something?
Every day we reject something.
Not only is Garfield one of the most widely printed comics in history, he's also arguably the most widely licensed and merchandised orange cat of all time. In order to keep track of the nearly $1 billion a year of tchotchkes adorned by Garfield and, to a significantly lesser extent, Odie, Paws Incorporated's resident young person, Derek Hall, helped develop a searchable digital archive called Picker. Can I try searching for something? Oh, thank you. Try a toothbrush. There we go. Oh, nice. Oh, for Darlie toothpaste. You know that used to be called Darky toothpaste? Garfield's cultural penetration has approached that of the Buddha or the Bible, although I don't recall Jesus Christ appearing on any Chinese toothpastes. To maintain that level of worldwide appeal, Davis and his team have followed one golden rule: no politics. I'd always wondered if the fact that Garfield had kind of managed to avoid being controversial, if that was for fear of the consequences marketing, or if that was tied into just your artistic vision.
Well, there are two problems with doing something, a political comment, social comment, something like that. One, it doesn't translate.
Right.
People in other countries wouldn't understand it, or in other cultures or at other times. Two, it dates the strip. You know, going, okay, that was 1983. That I'd like to think that 40 years from now, they could read the gag and laugh for the very same reason and just as heartily as they do today.
In my opinion, I wouldn't, at least with Garfield, wouldn't say the merchandise had in any way sullied my impression of it. Do you feel a sense of that, or?
I told folks, I said, if we get into it, we're not going to let people just use an image and stamp it on stuff. If we get into it, we're going to be involved with it. We'll help drive it.
Do you see some of the merchandise as works of art?
Early on, I always felt that Garfield says things that people feel, but they don't necessarily have the courage to say, but they'll have it on a coffee mug. Like, morning's better if they started later. Things like that, they go, oh, that cat, look at him, he hates mornings. You know. Kind of look for things that resonates with people, that they can use to express themselves. The work of art, no, I think hopefully it's well-designed, colorful, and it's spelled correctly.
Do you think that Garfield will ultimately be remembered as a comic strip that produced many items, or as kind of like a, do you think he could ever be mistaken for a deity, I guess?
Garfield, after 40 years, he's attained a bit of an iconic status. There have been movies, there have been books, there have been other things. And I certainly want him to be known as a comic strip, because that's where he really entertains. He really struts his stuff. That's his sweet spot.